This is the Skin in the Game VC podcast, hosted by Tom Wallace, entrepreneur turned venture capitalist and the managing partner at Florida Funders, along with Saxon Baum, general partner and head of investor relations at Florida Funders. You'll learn from the best about investing in early stage tech companies, so you too can gain the confidence and find the tools that help you succeed as an angel investor. Are you ready to get some skin in the game?
Hello, everybody. This is Tom Wallace, and I am the managing partner of Florida Funders, and I want to welcome you to another edition of our Skin in the Game podcast. I have here with me Saxon Baum.
How is everybody doing? Great to see everybody today. We have a great guest today that we're very excited about.
Yes, that's true. And Saxon is one of my partners at Florida Funders. And for those of you who are new to Florida Funders, welcome. We love to have new investors and new founders join us. The purpose of our podcast is really for us to have interesting people like we have this morning on the podcast. We have our mayor here from Tampa, who you're going to meet in a second, and to really learn from each other and learn what's going on out there in the world of technology and how that's affecting all of us and what we see coming down the pike and what's happening. So with that, welcome, Mayor Castor. Really excited to have you on.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. Very excited.
Great. Well, we're excited to have you. I thought, maybe just let our audience know how you became mayor and your background. I know it, but I think they'd like to hear it from you and give us, how did you become the mayor of Tampa?
All right. I'll try to keep it very, very brief. Actually, I was born and raised in Tampa, and so been here for 64 years. Went to University of Tampa on an athletic scholarship and then went into the Tampa Police Department, became a police officer back in 1984. So I spent 31 years serving this wonderful city as a police officer. The last 6 of those, I was the chief of police, and then went into consulting for other law enforcement agencies across the nation. And one of the 2 previous mayors, one of which had named me as the chief of police, just began talking to me about the future of our city and the way that, our city is going to grow more in this decade than it has in my entire lifetime, and never really had any thoughts of running for political office. And so I thought, I'd love to be a part of that. It would be such an honor. So ran for mayor back in 2019. I was elected. We have a strong mayor form of government here in Tampa, so you get 2 4-year terms. So I'm 1 year into my second term, and I've got 3 years, or we have 3 years to get so much done in this incredible city.
Great. So was it Bob Buckhorn that talked you into this?
It was Bob Buckhorn and Pam Iorio.
Okay. Two good friends, and also great members of our community. So,
without a doubt.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I didn't know you were an athlete. What did you go to Tampa on a scholarship for? Yes,
I went athletic scholarship for basketball and volleyball. Back then, you could be a 2-sport athlete. They don't allow that now, but I was a product of the Title IX that went through when I was what they used to call junior high school.
I thought you were going to say you got NIL money.
No.
God knows college sports is changing, and that's something we might want to talk about later, Zach.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
Of the Wall Street Journal article that came out this week that Drew Weatherford, another Tampa and good friend of ours, was featured in. I was thinking about some questions for you that we're mostly technology oriented, and I just got back from a trip. And I was I do a Father's Day trip every year. My daughter and I, kind of an annual thing, and we went to Vancouver, Canada, and then on to Seattle. And I was on the West Coast previously about a month ago, and a lot of cities around America are having problems, and I saw it firsthand in Vancouver and in Seattle, coming out of COVID with homelessness and lawlessness, maybe. I feel we've been very fortunate here in Tampa, where we seem to be doing very well with compared to when I compare us to those cities, and San Francisco and LA are at the top of the list that everybody talks about. So what do you attribute that to? Why are we not experiencing some of the problems and issues that they're experiencing? And I think this affects tech, because tech workers tend to want to be in cities and around other tech people, and the energy and excitement you get from that. When everybody doesn't want to be there, San Francisco's got a problem.
Right, without a doubt, and other cities are seeing that. I actually was on a conference call yesterday with the U.S. Conference of Mayors, and we're having our annual meeting starting tomorrow in Kansas City. And there are a lot of cities that are struggling nationwide and really, fell into somewhat level of disorder, and then saw people leaving their cities in large numbers as a result of the pandemic. And, that it had a negative effect worldwide without a doubt. But in Tampa and in other cities around the United States, we really were able to grow during the pandemic, and then following that as well, because everyone was working remotely. And so when you could choose wherever you wanted to live and then work remotely, frankly, why not live in paradise and be able to come down to a location that the cost of living was relatively low. We had all of the amenities of a big city, our sports teams, the businesses. We have an incredibly diverse economic portfolio, and surrounded by water, great weather, the vast majority of the year. And so many young people started flocking into our community.
Yeah,
and
we
it
saw
really
that.
hasn't stopped.
And I'm sorry to interrupt you. We saw that. And I think the other thing that we saw, last week I was playing golf, and I ran into our governor playing golf. And one thing that we saw in Florida during COVID is we benefited because we never really shut down like a lot of other states and cities did. So we had a lot of young people flocking here, which you're referring to. So I think, don't you think politics? I mean, I'm not political, but played a part in that we stayed open when everybody else was shut down.
Well, the weather played a big part in that as well, is because we were able to open up to the outdoors and allow restaurants to continue. We also had a very strong focus on our business community and what we could do to ensure that small businesses could either pivot their business model or find a way to stay open, whether that was funding that we provided, or they again were able to pivot that business model. But yes, I do believe that politics played a part in that, but there were so many different elements that just played in our favor. You really can't even take out the Brady effect. I mean, we won the we won the Super Bowl during the pandemic, and those are situations that put your community on the world stage, and people get to see how wonderful Tampa and the Tampa Bay region are, or were, and still are.
Mayor Castor, it's interesting that you use the word pivot. That's a word that we use in technology and early stage investing. I mean, it's essentially synonymous with what we do. I've never heard that word used for SMBs and for government, so that's really interesting. I did want to ask you about weather. I wanted to build on that. Obviously, we've had some climate change happening over the last several decades in the U.S., and I think Florida specifically has seen a lot higher temperatures. Have you guys seen, or has anybody presented different technology solutions to potentially solve those problems or help solve those problems?
Well, we have, we've done, I hired the first sustainability and resiliency director in the city of Tampa. And so every decision we make really is filtered through that lens of sustainability and resiliency. And we're doing a lot of things with the heat mapping and our tree canopy and all of those types of, and technologies involved to a degree in that, with University of South Florida, working with the University of Tampa. But really, I think Some of the technology that we're looking at, some of the ways to address it, I think one of the biggest is going to be the carbon capture, looking at that. And then, being able to tell through technology where those locations are that need to be addressed for the heat. That is incredibly important. And then addressing that through a variety of different solutions, whether it's solar, electric vehicles, whatever it is. And we try to keep that relationship open with these young emergency tech groups so that any solutions that they have, they may be able to bring forward. There's so many that we could talk about, even our smart city solutions, applying those to traffic to try to keep people moving in traffic, to address the effects of hurricanes and those large storms that come towards us. So we do use technology and continue to try to grow in that field each and every day.
Yeah, so that segues into, we can't talk to anybody today without talking about AI and artificial intelligence. As you look at in city governments around the country, as you said you're getting together with these group of mayors. When you guys look at artificial intelligence and its application to city government, are there some use cases, some things that you think are really low-hanging fruit, and where AI is really going to help you as a mayor
There
of a
are
major city?
so many areas that AI, really every corner of government, it could be useful and valuable. But the two areas that, as you described, the low-hanging fruit that we've looked at is permitting and purchasing. We are growing so dramatically. And if you look at our development, all the neighborhoods we've created all over the city of Tampa, permitting, being able to use AI that can do that initial review of permitting and look for any of those anomalies would really save an incredible amount of time and personnel as well. It takes a long time to onboard those FTEs, and you don't want to bring them all on, and then you have a slowdown in development and have to cut your staff. And then purchasing, the amount of purchasing that we do and the intricacies of that really avail itself to AI, the application of AI. So those are two areas that we're looking at right now. We also were just chosen, and I'm going next week to a meeting in Baltimore with 23 other mayors from around the world. We were chosen to be a part of Bloomberg's Data Alliance. And so that's a focus for our city, as well as how we can utilize data, how we can collect it and utilize it in the most useful way. And of course, that incorporates AI as well.
Now, Mayor Castor, we're early stage technology investors. And one thing that we believe, and I know, Tom, you talk about this always, is the organic growth of an ecosystem. Not by bringing companies, large companies from around the world and the country to a city like Tampa, but having companies grow from the ground floor in a city like Tampa. Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about what you've seen in the early stage technology ecosystem here in Tampa and how you and your team are continuing to help foster the success of that ecosystem?
Right. That has just grown wildly since I've been in this position since 2019. And looking at the different groups, bringing in Florida funders to be able to provide the funding that these startups need. And really that is the opening of that door of opportunity is they have a great idea. You just have to have that funding to bring it forward, working hand in hand with the Wave, with Lakshmi and Linda and so many Embark Collective and so many other groups that are bringing these young entrepreneurs in that have these incredible ideas that will allow us to be more efficient and more effective through the use of technology. And so we work as closely as we can, and we have seen that area grow dramatically, and not just from a personal perspective. If you look at Forbes named us as the #1 emerging tech hub in the nation. And so we have to pay attention to that. We like to bring in companies, we like to have headquarters and expansions, but what we want is to grow those businesses from the ground up here in our community. And there's no better sales pitch to other young entrepreneurs and innovators than to see those companies be supported and see them grow in your backyard.
Yeah,
And
you're preaching to the choir there. We're big believers in the organic growth. That our next great companies are not going to be somebody we recruit from some other city,
Right.
but they're going to be grown here locally. I mean, look at ReliaQuest, look at Align. I mean, get right. I can name
No before.
I mean, these companies were started here. Even Tech Data, going back, 30
Yes.
years. Steve Raymond, the company he built across the bay. Steve's one of our investors, as is Brian Murphy from ReliaQuest, and Scott Price from Align. So we love to see that, and that's what we believe in, and we're trying to foster every day at Florida Funders. That comes down to two things, early stage capital, which is what we focus on, and talent.
Right.
Maybe you can talk about what you think about the talent situation in Tampa when it comes to highly educated workforce, and how you kind of look at that, and what you can do as mayor. I don't know, what can you do to move the needle in that regard? Because the thing we really saw during COVID, which was very exciting, was we saw really bright and talented entrepreneurs not only staying here to start their businesses, we saw them coming here and staying and starting their businesses here rather than going to Austin or Boston or New York or Silicon Valley, which was super exciting.
It sure is. And we haven't had an issue with the talent pool in our community. And as you said, ensuring that you are putting that focus on individuals in your community, as you do at Florida Funders and so many other groups, that resonates throughout our nation, and really, frankly, throughout the world as well, to say that this is a location that you can come to, be supported, and be successful. And so we continue to ensure that not only do we have the academic institutions through University of South Florida, through University of Tampa, St. Leo, so many others that turn out the best and the brightest. And also individuals that come to Tampa to attend those academic institutions. 80% of those from outside the Tampa Bay area stay here. And so
that's great to know. Yeah,
I didn't know.
Yeah, that's a great way to feed that skilled workforce supply. And then just making sure that you're telling your story. I do believe that that's one of the missteps that we have made historically, is that we have a great community. Yeah. We have a big city with that small town feel, where people come, they feel a part of the city, they feel welcome immediately, but we really haven't communicated that. And so others are communicating it for us, and we're doing a much better job of telling our story. And it's a story that's resonating around the not only the United States, but around the world.
Yeah, Sax, I know you wanted to bring up
Yeah, that's where I was going to go after that.
Go ahead.
We do a lot of work in Miami as well. We are Florida Funders, not just Tampa Funders. Tampa's our home, and we love it here. But we do a lot of work all over the state, specifically in Miami as well. One thing that I believe they've done a great job of, and Tom, I think you agree with this, and really it's Mayor Suarez and what he's done, is get the story out about Miami being a great tech hub. One thing that we wanted to ask you today was, do you look at Miami and say, how do we replicate what they've done? Do you look at Miami and say, they've done a great job, but we want to do better? How do you look at that in the ecosystem that they've built and compare it to Tampa, and sort of what's next for Tampa to try to become that tech hub in the state of Florida?
Yes. Well, clearly I am always on the lookout for best practices and, what we can do better in our community. And it's one of the beauties of getting together with other mayors and being able to discuss these highlights. The story that I always tell is that Miami and Tampa, you can choose one or the other of those. And we want to have those same attractions that Miami has. But I really think it comes down to a choice of a lifestyle. And a lot of the companies that have come here to our community talk about their workforce, and their teams are made up of individuals that are in their late 20s, early 30s, and they're looking to start their families or already have, and they want to live in a community that they see as a place that's favorable to raise a family. And so Miami is more of the fast life 24/7, and Tampa, I see it as more of the community where you want to come raise that family, be a part of the community, and also have a successful business. And we have all of the amenities that Miami has as well, with the culture, with the arts, with the sports, everything that those cities have. It's more of the lifestyle choice, I believe. And so I think we're running neck and neck with Miami. And Francis is a great friend of mine. I'll see him this weekend as well. But you have that choice, which is great for Florida as well, to have that variety of cities that you can choose from.
Yeah, it's a key differentiator. I couldn't agree more there.
Well, Zach, you're a young guy, and you could be in Miami or here. I mean, you're working Florida Funders. I mean, you could be as effective, arguably, maybe in Miami, and you chose to be here in Tampa.
Absolutely. For that reason, exactly. I mean, I wanted to raise my family here. I'm from Pittsburgh. I'm not from New York. I like the small town, big city feel, and I couldn't agree more. I mean, that's a huge differentiator. I think it's an advantage for us in Tampa.
Great.
How do we get the story out, I guess, is the next question. How do we get the story out that this is a great place to build a business, specifically in technology? Tom, I know you've been here 30 plus years, have grown 2 great companies here in the city. How do we get those stories out?
Well, I think they're out. I tell people that we're very fortunate to be able to live in paradise, and I think that secret is out there now. And we have a great team here at the city. They're incredible at telling our story on those platforms that the young people pay attention to. And also, the coverage that we get doesn't hurt. Being named as one of the top 50 places in the world by Time Magazine, one of the funnest cities in the nation, the place to, we're number one in the nation, number one city in the nation for women-owned businesses. All of those attributes, if you look at any of these top 10 lists, we're somewhere in there. Unfortunately, we're also on that list of the fastest rising costs of living as well. So those are things that we are trying to address from a number of different avenues as well.
Yeah, that kind of segues into or brings up, with all this growth that Florida is experiencing, 1,000 people move here a day, and we've seen a lot in Tampa, which is very positive, and a lot of it's really, really, really good for Tampa and for Florida. It also comes with a lot of challenges. You mentioned traffic as one earlier. How do you see managing that growth as people continue to move here, because we live in damn near paradise?
That's so true. Well, the issues that we're focusing on, as I spoke about earlier, the sustainability, resiliency, critically important. But really, the 3 issues that I see as being intertwined are transportation. That is our most immediate need right now for a number of different reasons. One is that the solutions take so long. Solutions for traffic are usually a decade to come to fruition. And so that's something I joke that mass transit in our community is more than 2 people in an SUV. So we're focusing on that, bringing Brightline down from Orlando, and then solutions within our city, expanding our streetcar, and then connecting our city through a number of different mass transit solutions, and then doing that regionally as well. Another is housing affordability. As our cost of living and our rent and mortgage prices have grown, we have a need for 26,000 affordable homes today in our community. And so we're working diligently on that each and every day, not just providing homes at the affordable level, but at every level, because we didn't have that supply, even in the high-end homes, middle income, and affordable. We just didn't have the supply, and you're starting to see more of that coming out of the ground and being completed as well. And then lastly is the workforce, ensuring that we're bringing those high-skilled, high-paying jobs here so people can afford to pay those higher prices in homes. So really those are all connected. Transportation, making sure your workforce.
Yeah, I got to ask you about the transfer. I mean, I'm going to ask you about the transportation part, because I've watched this for 3 decades here in Tampa, and I think everybody that lives here would tell you we've struggled with it. We
Yes.
don't have good mass transportation. I think that may turn out to be a blessing. This is my opinion. So, like, it's like if you've been building software for the last 2 years, now with AI, you're like, oh, geez, I could have built this like in a week. Maybe I'm exaggerating, but so coming later, not putting in the solutions that I don't think are going to serve well in the future. Let's just jump to, and as an example, the robo-taxi, Elon, and what Waymo's doing at Google. We may be better off not having put in trains and at least last mile kind of stuff here locally.
Right.
How do you guys look at that? We had Kathy Wood, and you spoke at our investor summit this year, and we had Kathy Wood there, and she was talking about this, and this is so true in technology. It goes really, really, really slow, and then it goes boom.
Right.
And a lot of people think we're getting to that boom stage with robo-taxis and autonomous vehicles, where we're just going to have a lot less cars on the market, on the streets, and a lot less traffic, and young people aren't going to own cars.
I agree. The young people not owning cars has already begun. People are moving here without any intention of having a vehicle. But I do agree with you, Tom. I also used to joke that we're so far behind in transportation, we think we're first. But that may be a blessing when you look at all of the innovation. I can't tell you how many presentations I've had from companies that are jumping into the air taxi. And Florida really is geographically the way it's laid out, from Jacksonville, Orlando, down to the Tampa Bay region, and then down to Miami. They see that as the perfect pilot location. Looking at some of the water and ensuring that we're utilizing that as a viable form of transit too. And then, as you've said, autonomous vehicles, all of that is going to come at us in a fast and furious fashion. And so I do agree with you that, not having put decades and decades and billions of dollars into some of these well, I guess we probably could say old-fashioned and reliable transportation formats may turn out to be a blessing for us. But I can say I think it's going to get a little stickier before it gets any better.
Yeah, I look at that, so as you look at, and I've done some work with Florida Poly, and they're very on top of the whole autonomous vehicle thing out there. What can you as a mayor do potentially to encourage, Waymo and Cruise were both, doing a lot of robo-taxis in San Francisco. How can we get that technology coming here so we're on the front edge and the leading edge of this, and not being just following everybody else?
Yes. Well, that's a great question. That's when you want, I always told groups that the technology and other innovation groups, when I was the police chief, I said, come to our city and we'll be your petri dish. Come here with the pilots for those types of innovation, regardless of what sector it applies to, because Tampa, as we have talked about, being that big city, but still small enough to be able to get things done. And the collaborative nature that you find here in Tampa and the Tampa Bay region is very attractive for a lot of these companies to come and grow their ideas and their businesses. And so that really is the type of personality that we want to get out to the tech sector. and make sure that these companies know that they're welcome and supported when they come to our area.
Well, and that thought exactly how you're thinking about it, Mayor Castor, in terms of government, we think about that in terms of corporates. We're trying to get our companies and early stage technology companies to work with the larger corporate companies here in Tampa, in Miami, in Florida as a whole. So we really look at that as a huge differentiator. If we can get our Fortune 100 and Fortune 500 companies to test technology and ultimately be a customer, maybe even an investor in some of these businesses, we look at that very similar just in the private sector.
Yes. And I think that's incredibly important, having that mentorship, whether it's a retired business person that's mentoring someone in the aspects of business that they don't know, they have a great idea, but they've never run a business before, or having those partnerships with these larger companies that will really mentor these small innovative businesses towards or along a successful path. That is, I believe that's a key to attracting those innovative startups, but also ensuring that they're successful in our community. And that success resonates. Those small companies, as you well know, they hear about those stories. Absolutely. And they want to be a part of it. And I do believe that's why we're growing so quickly, not only in the tech sector, but so many other areas as well.
Yeah, I again just got back from Seattle, and I think about, Seattle. I was there 2 days ago. It was cold as hell. I'm like, these people get any summer? I mean, why do people live here? This is crazy. It was 50 degrees. It felt like it was 30. Anyway, but if you look at Seattle, Microsoft has had such an impact on Seattle and their technology scene, which is very robust. I mean, and those success stories that you're referring to here, we have ReliaQuest, we have Tech Data, we have Jabil. The more of those we have that are breakout companies and become known nationally, internationally, that really, I think, is exciting for our young entrepreneurs and founders to say, hey, I can build the next Microsoft or Google here in Tampa or in Florida. So yeah, that's super.
And I think that goes to the core of our identity here in Tampa and the Tampa Bay area as well, is that, people are always saying, when are we going to get the Fortune 500? And frankly, I would rather grow these companies from the ground up. We're more the community where you roll up your sleeves, help each other out, and let's see what we can do to grow that next big company from the ground up right here. And we do have plenty of examples of how that has been done.
Yeah, I think I've been watching this movie for about 3 decades. I think the last Fortune 500 we recruited from somewhere else, which don't even get me going on that, was Mosaic. And Joe, I forget his name, the CEO, I actually know. I think they brought, 50 jobs, 100 jobs. I mean, it was like really small. I couldn't agree with you more that our opportunity is to help these founders and build these great companies here. And they're going to have the biggest impact. They're going to make lots of success. They're going to bring in high-paying jobs and all that, and create high-paying jobs. And then they're going to have exits. And then the people that exit those, they're going to start companies. And that whole cycle is just really phenomenal.
It's just like Microsoft in Seattle. It's just like Dell in Austin. That's how these cities become tech hubs. It's exactly what you're saying, Tom.
Yeah.
Without a doubt. I mean, the other day, I don't know if you guys are aware, but the VA hospital had a hackathon here, and I went and spoke to them in the beginning. It was MIT, Microsoft, the VA, and they had 400 people that showed up from around the United States, and they had 3 areas that they were focusing on, in the medical solutions, but mostly the customer service. But it was incredible to watch over at University of South Florida Medical School. And so having that diversity of opportunity here in the technology world, I believe is important for our community and really gets that word out, to your earlier point, around not only the United States, but around the world, that that Tampa is a great place to come and be supported.
Well, I think a lot of that, I think a lot of what makes us very attractive is, and going back to, and we're running out of time, going back to what we originally started with, is these other cities, for whatever reason, are really dealing with some major problems like homelessness and, lawlessness, I would call it. And you've done a great job in that area. We don't have that, I'm very proud of Tampa, and I know, I speak for all of Florida Funders and our partner. We're very proud of Tampa, and that we have this wonderful city where we don't have a big homeless problem. We don't have a crime problem. We've got a lot of things we take for granted. When you travel around, you start to realize how fortunate we are.
Yeah,
and I thank you for that, because you're running the show, so you must be doing something right.
Well, thanks. I appreciate that. And we changed the way we police way back in 2003 with a collaborative relationship with a community. And as a result, we are one of, if not the safest city our size in the United States. And it really is addressing those issues, very quickly, getting on top of it, with homelessness. That is a pervasive issue throughout the United States. But here in our community, we're providing the solutions for that. And so we don't have that issue that they have in other cities. And really, I will always believe that safety and security is the foundation on which all successful cities are built. Nobody's bringing their business here. Nobody's bringing their family here if they feel that they're not moving to a safe community.
Great point.
Yeah, great point. All right. Well, Mayor Castor, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mayor Castor. This was awesome. And to echo what Tom said, thank you for everything you've done for our great city.
Well, thank you. And I feel so excited and so honored to be on this program because, at 64 years of age, I would tell people that my tech department went off to college, several years ago. So it's anything that I can ever do or be around with tech is beyond exciting for me. So I appreciate what you guys are doing for not only our community, but the entire state of Florida. And most importantly, helping to grow those innovative tech solutions into the future.
Great.
Awesome. Great seeing you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Always good to see you.
Much.
Have
a great day.
All right. Well, that wraps up our Skin in the Game podcast today. And I want to thank everybody for joining us and remind you, if you're a founder and you're interested in funding and raising money, that's what we do here at Florida Funders. Go out to our website and you can figure out how to reach us there. And if you're an investor and you're interested in investing in early stage technology companies, learning more about angel investing in a fund, we would welcome your participation, your interest in getting involved. So again, floridafunders.com is the best way to find us.
Absolutely. Thank you all for being here. If you love this show, which we hope you do, please subscribe on our YouTube channel. Tom and I do the pod twice a month, and we have some other great guests coming up here over the next few weeks. So thank you all for being here.
Thanks for spending your time with Skin in the Game VC today. If you want to learn more about investing in early-stage tech like a venture capitalist, be sure to visit the Florida Funders website at floridafunders.com. Join our angel network at no cost and get access to Florida Funders VC-vetted investment opportunities in the next great breakout tech companies.